والخفيفة كبول الفرس وما يؤكل لحمه وخرء طير لا يؤكل. And the light is like the urine of a horse, and that animal whose flesh is lawful to be consumed, and the excrement of a bird that is not lawful to be consumed. So here, the urine of a horse. Why a horse? Because the horse meat is makruh tanzihi. To eat horse meat is what? Makruh tanzihi. وَالْمَانِعُ مِنَ الْغَلِيظَةِ. So what is the limit? Now we do the limit of major impurities. Because some people, when you tell them, brother, come and pray salah, what do they say? We cannot pray salah because we have impurity on our clothing. So what is the limit of the impurity on the clothing? The author states, وَالْمَانِعُ مِنَ الْغَلِيظَةِ ما زاد على قدر الدرهم ومن المخففة ما بلغ ربع الثوب أو البدن. The preventative amount of the heavy filth is what exceeds the size of a dirham, and the preventative amount of the light filth is that what reaches a quarter of the clothing or the body. Now this means a dirham. How do we measure a dirham? Some people give the example of a 50 pence coin. A better example would be if you place your palm out flat and you place water on the palm, the amount of water that rests on the palm, if this much of the heavy impurity is on the body or on the clothing, the prayer is invalid. So if there is that amount of blood or any other impurity on the body or on the clothing, the prayer would be invalid. If there is less than this, the prayer would be valid, even though the person is obligated to remove the impurity. But the prayer would be valid. If it's that amount, meaning the dirham amount, then it would be wajib, necessary for the person to remove the impurity. If it exceeds that amount, then it becomes fard, an obligation to remove that impurity. If it is less than that amount, it is sunnah mu'akkada, meaning emphasized sunnah, to remove that impurity. So when people say, we cannot pray the prayer because we have impurity on our clothing, you must ask them, are you walking around with this much impurity on your clothes? Any human who has any civil behavior will not walk around with that much impurity on the clothing. So they are obligated to go and change their clothes. In Sharia, they should not be walking around with impurity. Muslims should not behave in such a manner. But you will be shocked at how many Muslims today make this excuse. We have impurity on our clothes, therefore we cannot pray. So if the impurity is less than that amount, the prayer would be valid. As for the lighter impurity, so here we are in the countryside, the droppings of a goat or a sheep would be lighter impurity. Someone is walking in the countryside, they fall into some cow pat. How much of that is forgiven? A quarter of the clothing. But what is meant by a quarter of the clothing? The arm length is considered one part, so 1/4 of the arm length. Or the torso, the chest, the torso of the body, 1/4 of that. Or the leg, 1/4 of that. Meaning if 1/4 is impure, then it's wajib to remove that. If less, then it's sunnah muakkada to remove that. So if someone is walking now and they fall and they have a stain of cow dung or cow pat on the clothing, if the stain of cow dung is less than 1/4 of that particular area, then their prayer would be permitted. Because then it would be unavoidable in country areas.